Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're basically playing detective, trying to unravel one of the biggest mysteries out there. What does it truly mean to be alive?
All right, let's just jump right in. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? But you'd be surprised. The scientific answer is this incredible puzzle. And solving it, that's our first step to understanding, well, the entire living world.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look for the clues that define life. Then we'll get into how we give everything a name and a place. And finally, we'll check out the actual toolkit biologists use to get all this work done.
All right, so what are those definitive characteristics we're looking for? It's interesting because some of the things you'd think are obvious, well, they can be a bit misleading.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at this distinction. We all think of growth and reproduction as signs of life, right? But check this out. A crystal can grow. A sand dune can grow, but it's all from the outside. And what about sterile worker bees? They're absolutely alive, but they don't reproduce. See? They're not foolproof clues. The real, the definitive, non-negotiable signs of life are these three right here. So let's break these down. These are the big three. First, you've got metabolism. That's the sum total of all the chemical reactions happening inside an organism, kind of like a tiny busy factory. Then there's cellular organization. Simply put, all living things are made of cells. Non-living things just aren't. And finally, consciousness. Now, this isn't about deep thoughts. It's the ability to sense and respond to the world. Think about a plant turning towards the sun. That's consciousness in action. If something checks all three of these boxes, boom, it's alive.
Okay, so we've got our definition down, but that just opens up a whole new can of worms, doesn't it? The sheer mind-boggling scale of life on Earth.
Get a load of this number. 1.8 million. That's how many species we've officially identified and named so far. Think about that. 1.8 million different kinds of plants, animals, fungi, you name it. And the crazy part? We're finding new ones all the time.
And this amazing variety has a name: biodiversity. But with all this diversity comes, well, a bit of chaos. Imagine one type of bird having 20 different local names depending on where you are in the world. How could scientists even talk to each other? It's a recipe for confusion.
So the big question is, how do you create order out of that beautiful mess? You need a system, a standardized, universal system for naming things. So a scientist in Brazil and a scientist in Japan are talking about the exact same creature.
And that, my friends, brings us to the absolutely brilliant solution that scientists came up with: a universal language for all of life. The whole process is called nomenclature, and really, it's just a set of agreed-upon international rules. You've got codes for plants and different codes for animals. The whole point is to make sure every single organism has one and only one scientific name that's recognized all over the world.
And the system we use today is called binomial nomenclature. It was dreamed up by this guy, Carolus Linnaeus, who's basically the father of modern taxonomy. The real genius here is its simplicity. He gave every single species a two-part name, and it was a total game changer.
So let's look at how it works. It's a two-part name, right? You've got the generic name, or genus, and the specific epithet, which is the species. Take the people tree, for example, Ficus religiosa. Ficus is the genus, religiosa is the species. And there are rules. The names come from Latin, they're printed in italics, the genus is capitalized, the species isn't. It's this beautiful, precise code that any biologist on the planet can understand.
But naming things is really just step one. I mean, it's great to have names, but to really understand life, we need to see how everything is connected. We need to organize them. The best way to think about it is like we're building a massive library, a great library of life.
And this is that library's filing system. It's called the taxonomic hierarchy. It goes from the biggest, most inclusive category, kingdom, all the way down to the most specific level, species. You can almost think of it like a mailing address for an organism, getting more and more precise with each step down.
And here's the key principle. As you go up the ladder, from species towards kingdom, the organisms in each group have less and less in common. For example, your house cat and a tiger. They're in the same family, Felidae. They're pretty similar, right? But your cat and, say, a dog, you have to go up a level to the order Carnivora to find where they connect. They share fewer characteristics. The higher you climb, the broader the category becomes.
So, that's the system. But how do biologists actually do all this classifying and organizing in the real world? Well, they have a whole toolkit of what are called taxonomical aids to help them out. First up, for the plant people, you have the herbarium. This is literally a library of plants. It's a huge collection of dried plant specimens that have been pressed, mounted on sheets, and carefully labeled with all the important info: what it is, where it was found, when it was collected. It's an absolutely essential reference tool for botanists.
Then, of course, you've got the living collections. We're talking about botanical gardens for plants and zoological parks, or zoos, for animals. These places are incredible because you can study the living organisms up close, see how they behave, what their habits are, all within a protected environment.
And let's not forget museums. Biological museums are like historical archives for life. They've got collections of preserved specimens. You've seen them, right? Insects in boxes, skeletons all set up, creatures in jars of preservative fluid. It's all there for study and reference. A snapshot in time for scientists. Okay, now this next tool is one of my favorites. It's so clever. It's called a biological key. The best way to describe it is, it's like a choose-your-own-adventure book, but for identifying an organism. It's an analytical tool that guides you through a series of choices.
Here's how it works. The key is made up of a series of paired, contrasting statements. These are called couplets. So you look at your mystery organism, and you have to make a choice. Does it have fur, or does it not have fur? You pick one, and that leads you to the next couplet, and the next, and so on. By accepting one statement and rejecting the other each time, you're slowly but surely led to the correct identification. It's pure, simple logic.
And finally, you have the written records, the actual books that compile all this knowledge. A flora, for instance, gives you the complete rundown of all the plants in a particular area. Manuals are more like guidebooks that help you identify species you find. And a monograph? That's a deep dive, a super detailed account of one specific taxon. It's the whole shebang on one group.
So think about where we started. A simple question: what's the difference between a rock and a rose? And from there, we've unpacked the entire system that we use to define, name, and organize every living thing on Earth. But here's the most exciting part. This investigation is nowhere near over. With millions of species still out there, totally undiscovered, the great library of life is still growing. And who knows what secrets the next chapter holds?